So we're moving right along on this conversation. Today, I want to call this particular discussion the particulars of infinity. So pulsating within each and every one of us is a self. I'm going to call it a self that is uniquely us. It's me, it's you. There's no one else that has that same self. Each and every one of us has a distinctive, unmatched, and unparalleled characteristics of a soul personality. So it's not just the spiritual element, but it's actually also the personality. So the soul has also within it that personality. There was a great Hasidic sage. His name was Rabbi Zusha of Anapol. I think I've spoken about him before. He said that in the afterlife, I won't be asked, were you more like Moses? I'm going to be asked, why weren't you more like Zusha? Why did you not reach your own full potential? So often I think we look at others and say, well, why can't I be that? And we compare ourselves to this person and to that person. But what we want more than anything is to compare ourselves to ourselves. When we look within, we want to ask, why am I not me? Because there's something that makes me unique. There's something that makes me special. So how do I explore and bring out that specialness, if that's a word, within me? So just as no two people are alike physically, no two people are alike spiritually. Everyone in their own way is exceptional and unique. Each soul demands to be expressed and experienced differently. If there were two souls that were redundant, they wouldn't be here. God put you in this world because you're unique, because you have a unique mission to complete in this world. Every single human being has a unique spiritual vocation to be fulfilled that only you can fulfill. Nobody that lived before you, no one that will live after you, and no one that's living during your lifetime can fulfill the same thing that you fulfill. Your soul is here for a unique purpose. I know this sounds like some motivational speech, but if you want to talk about souls, it's important to talk about the uniqueness of your soul. The individual and the particular way that we each experience life is a result of the individuality of our soul. So not only do we see the world around us through the lens of our distinct soul, but the world around us is also affected and influenced by the uniqueness of our soul. So there's a reason why you're here, whichever city you're in. There's a reason why you're in this city. There's a reason why you're in this community. There's a reason why you are in this time period, because there's a uniqueness to your soul that is specific to this time period and not a different time period, because your soul could have come 100 years ago, or it can come 100 years from now. Whoever and whatever a person connects with emotionally, intellectually, or physically, they indelibly imprints the personality of soul upon that person, upon that place, upon that event. Every relationship we entertain becomes colored and imprinted, hopefully for the better, with our soul individuality. Which means this moment that we're experiencing now, here this morning in this class, has the imprint of each of our souls. We each stamped this class, this moment, with our soul, because we're here in this moment. So the fact that you're here, and not only we have the beautiful thing with our inner world, you have a virtual imprint because you're sitting at this class. But I see, for example, Jill, you're sitting out in the backyard and enjoying the nature. You have a physical imprint in that nature in your backyard at this moment. Your thoughts may have wandered at some point, and so you have the intellectual imprint of whatever you're thinking, and whatever you're feeling, however you're feeling this morning, you have the emotional imprint there also. So that is, I mean, there's a lot more to it, but that is, all of those elements are you in this moment, how you are right now. Let's talk about science for a second. Science has come a long way. Today, we have computers, which are essentially artificial intelligence machines that can solve mathematical riddles. They can win chess games against the best and brightest of human chess players. Yet, for all that, the artificial intelligence, the AI technology, still lacks a human soul. And the AI will never have a human soul, contrary to the science fiction movies. A self-enclosed machine lacks the ability to go outside itself and to judge itself. That's a human soul. The ability to go outside yourself and judge yourself. Remember we talked about the knowing and the knower? That's a uniquely human experience. Yes, and it's equal to be able to transcend yourself as well. AI can perhaps know how to react and what to do in a certain situation, but it's never going to know why it reacts this way and not another way. AI is deficient in what some philosophers would call qualia. It's incapable of experiencing pleasure, desire, anxiety, and hope. Those are emotions that are uniquely human. Now, it could carry out brilliant mathematical calculations. It could play a wicked game of chess. But even while it plays the chess, it knows nothing about playfulness. It's not going to get excited about winning, and it's not going to get agitated when it's losing. It's not going to worry about the next move or regret the last move. Now, this is just my analogy, but extending this a bit further, I think we come to the realization that various things that demonstrate our humanity, primarily our emotions, are experienced by each of us differently. We each experience our emotions differently. It's wrong to assume that all happy families are alike. Happiness and sadness, or for that matter, the whole gamut of human emotions and feelings, are unique, and they're singular, and they're felt by each and every one of us in our own distinct way. Now, just to add this before I go to your questions, although the soul at its core is unchangeable, as it's the element of permanence that runs through our life, the manifestations of the soul are not static, and they're not stagnant. The more dense levels of soul, those aspects that are more present as everyday consciousness and continuously expanding in relation to our life experience, the more externally oriented aspects of soul are in this perpetual state of flux and growth. And that's something we're going to have to get to, because when understanding the soul, we need to understand those elements. But let's keep it at this surface level at this moment. I'll take your questions and then we'll go forward. AI might see its reaction method as a reflection simply of its programmer. It's yet in a way of its externalization of the programmer's soul. That's interesting. So you're saying, but yet it can't feel on its own. You know, it's like the table feeling what the carpenter does when the carpenter puts it together. So it's still an inanimate object. Right. Oh, you just said it, like a car created just to extend the physical abilities beyond walking and soul. Yeah, you're right. Any other questions or comments? We're quiet today.
Yeah. So with animals, especially pets ones, they don't really have the ability either to kind of do that, self-examination. They like to play, they can learn, they can be loyal, but in a similar way, they can't kind of go outside themselves and judge. Oh man, I mean, if a dog does something bad, it'll act bad, but it's because of our reaction. Is
right.
that, so it's just about, it's not a human soul. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, we've already spoken about this, and we know that they have an animal soul, but they don't have that uniquely human experience.
Okay, so similar to AI in a sense, but
even animals even more than AI, because animals do have the ability to understand their needs, and an animal soul, what it is, it's just instinctive. So they have instinct. AI doesn't have instinct.
Right, but an animal doesn't know why it needs it, or
no, it doesn't have that.
As a human, so
it doesn't have the ability to self-examine. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny you're wearing the Stanford sweatshirt. I've been listening to Sapolsky a lot lately, and it speaks to this idea. He lived in Africa for many years and studied primates, and a point that reminds me of what we're talking about is that when a primate family or tribe exhibits a behavior to get food, they don't have a guilt trip like, oh, I just went to my neighbor and stole their whatever. They have a need, they experience it, they activate and do what they need to do to survive, but they don't self-reflect and wonder if they were being a good person or a bad person, or a good ape or a bad ape. They just.
What's also interesting is that we humans can do the same. If we don't actually activate that part of ourselves that is self-reflective, that is kind of creating those barriers, things that we do, like literally sitting here at this class, we could also just activate our animal soul. There are people, maybe you know some of them, who live their entire life just based on their animal soul.
I think when people need, I don't know, personally, I feel like people have gone into that survival mode at least once in their life. Like there definitely have to have been a situation with every single one of us where we have gone into that mode of survival, not necessarily stealing, but where we're just like, we are not thinking about, like if we're a good person or not. And it could have been like one incident or like a whole like period. I think that's happened to a lot of us, but it reminds me of this episode too. And this sounds kind of like, I don't know, of Malcolm in the Middle. I don't know if you remember that show. Okay, so it's like a show about this family, and essentially Malcolm, like one of the youngest brothers, is like the middle sibling, and his brother Reese goes through like this kind of Malcolm steals his girlfriend, so he joins the army because he's like upset and angsty. And in the army, at first he was like talking back, and he's like, why do I have to do this? Why do I have to do that? And then he ended up turning like his brain off and just doing whatever like the told him to do. So at the end of like that whole kind of episode, it was like a 2-episode thing. He talks about how, you know, like how it eventually, like him turning off that part of him where he's not really thinking, he's just like doing, even if it's wrong, like he's doing what somebody told him to do, and like he's not reflecting on it. He like said that it's not healthy to like kind of turn that bit off for so long. So that's like what this reminds me of a bit. It's like when you turn it off because you think that, you know, like if you're in a really like emotionally down state or something like that, and then to survive and to kind of like get by, turning it off could seem like really easy because you're doing and you're not reflecting. And then after a while, he was just like, I can't do this anymore. I like have to turn it back on. And then he got kicked out of the army. So yeah. So it's kind of like that, right? It's like,
Yes.
you know, turning it off to survive. And okay. So.
Yes. So I essentially, based on your analogy, we don't want to go into survival mode.
Ooh.
We want to go into thriving mode. Don't survive, thrive. Just made that up.
Ooh.
Just-
It has been said before, but I don't want to go into a political area. But anyway, but I wondered if you saw the thing right at the top about that when you were saying that the soul has its place in the time, the person. You also said where they're living. I don't know if you said city or town or something like that, but I felt for a long time that I have no longer have connections to where I live. I mean, COVID hasn't helped with that, but I don't feel that's true anymore. I mean, it's not literally zero, but it's almost.
If that's the case, then the soul may be asking you to change the place you're living.
Yeah, it could be. The trouble is that in order to for physical things, physical reasons, when we last moved house, which was I guess the early 2000s or late 2000s, at the time it was the only place we could get that was very big, that would contain all the stuff we had. But now property prices have gone so much up, it wouldn't be possible to have that same space. So there's a physical reason for it.
And that's, I think, a great analogy of life, that it's often our soul, while it's in this world, it becomes very much connected to the physical, and the more connected to the physical, the harder it is to move, and actually, the harder it is to leave, the harder it is to separate from anything. And that part of the goal is that the soul, it uses the physical but stays above it. That's the job of the soul.
The physical is just the vessel.
That's right. Which means, and even to the extent of the human experience, it's not the eyes that see, it's the soul that's using the eyes to see while it's connected with the body. It's not the ears that hear, it's the soul that's using the ears. And if you ever spoken to someone that had an out-of-body experience or of some sort, they'll tell you, that everything was so clear, they could see, and they could see their body below, and they could see themselves. Someone maybe, heaven forbid, was in an accident, or like there was some kind of experience. They could see it all, and you say, well, was it in the body or out of the body? Because really, it is the soul that's seeing, and it's the soul that's hearing, and the soul, but it's using the vessel of the body in order to be connected to this world. Because otherwise, we would all be a bunch of souls running around, and that wouldn't be a good idea. We need that physical. I mean, that's because we live in the physical world, but it's only a vessel.
The trouble is, even with the soul, even if the soul completely wanted to change location, there'll be physical impediments, because it's just that everything is so much more expensive nowadays.
Yeah.
And I mean, even if someone physically wanted to do that,
I mean, we live in a physical world. We're not denying that, but it's also a choice. And it's important. Any choice that you don't make, you're making. If a choice is being made for you, you're still making that choice. So every day that if you are self-analyzing, I'm just using this as an analogy. I'm not trying to say specific to your situation, because I think it's a great analogy. If you're self-analyzing and you say, I am not in the right place physically for myself right now, yet I'm too connected, and yet there's too many elements and barriers for me to be able to change that particular situation, then you are limiting yourself based on your body and not allowing your soul to be fully expressive.
Do you find a different way to express the soul within the same situation?
You could. That's an option. That's a choice as well. You're saying that maybe I'm not expressing my soul properly, and then you can stay in the same place and express your soul differently. That's possible. It could be that maybe it's an emotional challenge or an intellectual challenge or a spiritual challenge that your soul's asking for, not a physical challenge.
Oh, I will see what you mean, because there's more levels to it than we might think straight away. But you see, we are lucky these days because we do have the internet. So to a large extent, that does provide other outlets for the soul. It's not the same as human.
And we also have our spiritual growth, and we have our emotional growth, and we have our intellectual growth. And so those can all be things the soul's beckoning. It could be the soul is just saying, feed me something a little more spiritual.
Yes. And we do have more ways of doing that nowadays. I mean, some things can change on the other spheres, in the physical spheres, because different people going through the same problems, they come in and out of the town. There are all sorts of people grappling with this type of thing. And when you meet other people that are in a similar position, you may or may not establish contact with them, but each part of a contact network that nourishes the soul. So there may not be a single answer, but it might be a combination of things. It might be like partly using the internet to feed the soul. It might be partly finding people a bit that you can feed the soul, connect to with. And it's like, it's not the same as, I mean, I don't know, there isn't an ideal answer, because wherever everything is imperfect, if you say lived in Israel, you'll have challenges and problems that are unique to being in Israel. If you're outside of Israel, it depends where you are, but everywhere has pros and cons.
And what you brought up is very important, is that what is similar about both of those situations is how you choose to view it.
Which limitations and problems do you wish?
Yes.
Or can you accept?
Or do you see them as problems and limitations, or do you see them as challenges that you have to overcome?
That is a good question.
Yeah.
Because do we know ourselves enough to know which challenges we can do and which we're capable of?
And that's exactly what we're talking about today, is that is a uniquely human experience. That's right. Thank you, Jill. Wherever you go, you are there. And I would add to that, wherever your thoughts are, that's where you are. That's a Kabbalistic idea. Wherever your thoughts are, that's where you are. So if you want to go on vacation, just think it.
So do we have a spiritual reality just from this interaction on the internet, even though it's not physical, it's not exactly the soul?
I don't know about you, but it's very physical to me. I mean, I don't consider this the internet. I consider this a classroom, and we're sitting here studying together. Just so happens to be we're physically sitting in other places, but we're also physically sitting together in this virtual room.
Well, there's two ways of looking at it. One way is that a few hundred years ago, it would be like windows in our rooms, and by some sort of magic, we can all see each other through these windows. But from a different perspective, you could argue it's a mental thing, that in our minds, we each exist in each other's minds. So, but whether a mental existence is the same as a spiritual, I'm not sure. I suppose it could be.
Yeah, I think it's a good question. Okay, what else? Any other questions, or should we move on?
I just wanted to add to the whole like location thing. So like during COVID, I got really into astrology and studying like planetary aspects and like houses and what they mean, and like signs and houses. So it got like I went down this like loophole of interest through it. And there's this website that I would use because like everybody kind of has a birth chart born under like a certain moon. That's what it is. Not, they don't do like sun, but it's like born under a certain moon. What that kind of means. I was born under a full moon, which is like, there's a whole thing about it. But one thing that I found interesting on this website, and also in astrology, like Western astrology, not Vedic astrology, is that they have this thing called a relocation chart. So essentially what it is, your birth chart is, you know, like I was born in Montreal, I'm in Montreal, like when there's transits through the houses and like moon phases and everything, I could base that on Montreal. However, let's say if I wanted to move to New York, I put in the same information, like my date of birth, time, if I know, whatever, and the location I'd want to move to. And then it gives you a completely different like chart and transits and certain things that you could see, and what like aspects are in the houses, and like what planets are in the houses here, and like, and then you could look up what that means. So you have to like essentially interpret that. And I find that very interesting in regards to this too, because it's like, even if you moved somewhere, there's always not like a path for you that's destined for you, but it's like you make certain choices, and this might be your kind of like thing. So I didn't believe it at first, but I researched the kind of what I like living in Montreal, how that was for me, and throughout my whole life, and like what I kind of like saw, and like where I am here, and where those aspects can be if I'm in another place. So it definitely does have meaning for like spiritual development as well, wherever you are in the world, not necessarily like judging based on the houses, but that kind of made me feel like, you know, if I move somewhere, like you were talking about the soul and everything, the soul moves somewhere, and that place can affect the soul in this way, and you could grow and learn from it in this way. And these houses can probably, like the aspects can show you ways in which you could grow, and not situations that might arise, but like how, because you're born under a certain thing, how you might react, how you might do this and stuff like that. And I don't know, I found that really interesting with like the relocation, that because every single city that you're living in, every single environment, whether it's like a small apartment, big house, it all has meaning. It's like, what does this mean? If I'm in a small apartment right now, what does this mean? It probably, on the, not the practical level of things, which is like, I'm in a small apartment because I'm not a millionaire and like, you know, I don't have kids or like a husband or anything, and I'm fine with the space that I have. That's like a lesson. That's something like to learn as well. So down the line, I'm going to remember, why was I here? Not just because I was here, you know, and it doesn't mean anything to me. There's like always something and stuff. I always look at it like there's always something in everything, every experience, every interaction. I could take it, I could leave it. Like, so the relocation thing is really cool. Yeah, I don't know, I found that very cool. I just want to add that in.
Thank you.
Was your one called astrocartography, or was it a different?
Yeah.
There's so many of them, and it was on AstroSeek, but it's, I don't know, like I could link it. Am I allowed to link it in the chat?
Yeah, why not?
Okay.
I mean, if someone's interested in it.
Sure.
Rabbi, could I ask a question about the imprinting?
Sure.
So I just had a little static. So are we saying that we talked about everything we experience, there's an emotional imprint that's unique to us? Are we saying that that imprint is upon our soul, and then the soul carries it with it in its journey to infinity? Or are we saying that the soul imprints the physical emotional self?
Both.
Okay.
Both. It's a two-way street, because it's multidynamic.
Okay,
So
that makes sense.
and what's interesting is I think, using the computer analogy, I think about change. And if you make a significant change in your life, you can never really get rid of your past. It's kind of like, if you delete a file on a computer, you may not see it, and it may not be at the surface, but the file still exists. It's just there's no link to it. Or if you erase a pencil on a paper, yeah, it is erased, but there's still a little bit of a remnants of it. So there will always be, we always have a remnants of it. And that's because, and it's not a shameful thing. It's part of who we are. We all have a particular journey. And for whatever reason, if it's something that you're ashamed of, or it's something that's negative in some way, it's part of your journey, and it's part of your unique process. And it's okay to be ashamed of it, because that's part of the uniquely human experience of having that emotion of shame with regards to certain things that we've done. So we want that. That's being a whole person. Being an authentic person is experiencing the gamut of all those emotions, and also having the history and the collective history within yourself of all those emotions. There was a great Hasidic master, actually the third Chabad Rebbe, that Tzemach Tzedek, and he would sit and have private meetings with many of people who would come and ask advice and have and ask for guidance. And somebody came to him with a particular question. I don't know what it is. We don't know what it is. And the Rebbe turned to him and said, "I can't answer you." And he said, "What do you mean? You're the Rebbe. You can answer anything." And he said, "Every single time someone asks me for a question, I have to look within myself to find the answer. And I've never experienced that. So I can't answer you." And so I find that story, that narrative, really, to me, describes what it means to be human, and what it means to give counsel, and that your unique experiences need to be given and shared. They happen to you so that you can be empathetic to someone who it's happening to today. And I wonder so often, and I think of my own life and various experiences that I've had, both positive and negative. And during that time of having those experiences, it's very difficult. But if you look at it in retrospect, it allows not sympathy, but rather empathy. And the ideal situation when it comes to dealing, especially helping and guiding another person, doing it from an empathetic way. But in order to have that empathy, you have to have experienced it. And I'm not saying that you have to experience everything and you have to go looking for experiences so that you can have empathy for every situation. But the fact that you think about your past and think about the experiences you've had, and to think about what you've gone through, it's there because part of your life is to be able to give to others. And at some point, it may not be today, but at some point, you will have an opportunity to empathize with someone, and probably only you can do that. And you're going to think to yourself, "Oh my gosh, this person, somehow the world, the universe, serendipity, this person found me. This person asked me this question, not another person. And my life experience can allow me to be able to answer that." It's a beautiful thing. Your soul is here for a specific reason. If you knew the reason, you would do it and then you would leave. And we would all live in this world a day or two, and it would be like instant souls constantly moving through this world. but that's not what it is. Your soul needs to go through that mystery and that discovery. Your soul needs to go through that experience. And if you look at your life and the things that you remember off the top of your head and the things that maybe you have to look deep within to remember, if you look at your life, you're going to realize that all those experiences that you've experienced them for a reason, and they make, not only is the soul unique, not only is your purpose unique, but the trajectory of your experiences, the years that your soul has lived in this world and what it's experienced, that is also unique. And those uniqueness, that creates such a unique number that it's only your number. Whatever that number is, if I can use a mathematical analogy, it's only your number. Nobody else could ever, if you put those three things together, you know for sure there's nobody else that will, has, or can ever have that same unique thing, which means who you are, your personality, your soul, where you are, and every single experience you've had throughout your entire life. All that together is a unique formula that I think we can all agree there's no one ever that can possibly have that same unique formula. So
what do you, sorry,
yeah,
go ahead.
Please.
I was gonna ask you, because like we're on the topic of this, and you've probably seen it as well, where there is like invalidating environments for people. So like you're saying, no two experiences are the same. However, I find that a lot of people are conditioned to have that mentality where it's like, if you see somebody going through something hard, it either invalidates it, where it's like they're invalidating it, saying like, oh, you can't be sad. Like, you know, it's like, stop being sad. Like, it's not that hard. You know what I mean? Or instead of just understanding that everybody's experience is different. And though when you were talking about emotions before, like how we all experience like happiness and sadness, but it depends on the person and the soul on like how they react, like on what is asking of that reaction, you know?
So it's a good example, and I'll pinpoint that example. It could be if someone else got that advice from someone, they would feel very satisfied. Oh, thank you for saying it's not so bad. Thank you for that support. Maybe for your soul, you weren't satisfied, but by having that, it gives you the empathy that if that experience happens where you're on the giving end, you wouldn't do the same thing. You wouldn't be the conversational narcissist. You would want to truly be there for the person to just say, let's just be here together. I'm here for you. Understanding that there's no answers to whatever that person's going through. So right. you can now truly empathize because you've been through that experience. With
that person, right?
With you, that past experience allowed you, it's now stuck within your psyche, it's stuck within your unique soul imprint. And now you will have a choice, knowing that, being able to be the soul that you are and self-analyzing, which is what makes us uniquely human. You now processed it. And I assure you, there's going to be a situation. It may not be today and it may not be tomorrow, but at some point in your life, there's going to be a situation where you're going to have that repeated where you're on the giving end. Right. And at that point, you can make the choice to repeat what that person did to you, or you can make the choice to do something very different because of what you've learned.
Okay. I didn't see it like that. Instead of like, I saw it a different way. Now I see it this way, because that way kind of makes more like sense, like once you put it out there. So thank you.
So our time is coming to an end. What are we taking home today? I'm very curious. We've had a lot of different conversations. Celeste, why don't you start? What are we taking home today?
I was really really resonated and was really struck by what just this last piece of conversation about the our uniqueness, and how there's these three kind of, at least three vectors that make us all a unique number. That's beautiful. Thank you. Kelsey, it's so nice to see you today, by the way.
Oh, thank you. I'm still trying to pick out like one nugget. It was all very beautiful. I think really just, I think I've been thinking about if we could all just change ourselves and how profoundly that would impact the world if more people would just focus on their unique self and finding that. So it was good to just hear what you had to say about that today. And also the moving piece, that was interesting too. Jillian?
Thank you.
Julian, are you there? I think you're,
Oh,
yeah, there you are.
I'm not quite sure what happened there. I thought I'd unmuted. I don't quite know. I was just in the middle of finishing typing something. So, what was the question?
What do you, give us one nugget that you're taking home today?
Oh, could I come back to it?
Sure. Olivia, you
Thank
want to
you.
go for it?
I think what I really took away today was like the uniqueness of the soul. I needed that emphasized. There are times when, you know, like as everyone probably experiences, you kind of are like, why am I here? Like, what is my purpose? And you go down like this little, like this feeling of void, I guess, because you just don't know. But I think the beauty is in not knowing. And you're just doing based on what your soul kind of asks you to do in that moment and that experience, and how every experience contributes to like nourishing it throughout your life. And even the past, like you had said, the past is already written, like you can't delete it. However, there is a significance for that, and like we remember that. So it's like every step as you go, it's like you're writing your own story and your own purpose and your own unique thing, like every single minute, hour, a day. So that's something I needed a little bit of a reminder for, and I'm very thankful that this is what I'm taking away for today.
Thank you.
Is Julian ready, or are you ready?
Oh, I'm still thinking about it.
No
It's
problem.
hard.
Jill, would you like to share? Or?
Thank you. So you cracked me up with that term, conversational narcissist. I just want to say that it's like perfect. But I think what I got out today was connection of like the more we work on connecting with our soul, and we can use the example of moving, and I've moved a lot. Sometimes I had no idea why I'd landed someplace. I was always leading someplace, but my move to Boston was intentional. And I knew my soul was telling me, you got to go there. And, you know, been here 30 years, and I'm not in Boston, in Massachusetts, but I feel like that, and I'm not sure how that happened, how I connected with my soul to tell me to get here. But I think the more I can connect with my soul, then the easier it is and the more authentic it is to connect with others. You know, I really struck me when you talk about empathy and, you know, how to say that just the right thing to somebody that you don't even know why or who that it is, but it makes a big impact. And it's happened to me where people saying it to me. So I, you know, would hope that I could
Oh, we lost you, Jill. Oh, we lost you. You still there?
She's frozen on my screen now.
Yeah, frozen.
She's
Okay.
still connected because her thumbnail's still at the top of the screen. Still got her name. So she must still be connected. But
It's
whether
like the worst times.
Yeah, it's I actually just got a new internet because mine kept on freezing. And I think it makes a difference. Oh, there. Yeah. Okay. Jen, what about you? You haven't said anything. You've been very quiet today.
Hopefully you can hear me. I'm on an earpiece.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I think there were a couple of things. The first was the first part of our conversation about how to look beneath the surface. I've been struggling with the last couple of weeks of the Torah portion with all the do's and don'ts. That's very rigid, and I know there's more to it than that, but that's just a nice reminder. And then the second thing was, I think we touched on it before, but the idea of going through certain experiences so we can have empathy. We've talked about it before, but that was just, if that really resonated again. So thank you. And I don't know who hasn't gone yet. Maybe, Jordan, are you ready to?
Yeah, thank you. It's very kind of you. The thought I've come to is, although I haven't come up with something completely new or had a revelation, you can't always have a revelation, but it's nice if you, nice thing to aspire to. But the thought I've come to is, it is instead a sort of a joining together of various previous concepts, and that is almost rewinding through what we said in a way that I kind of have been functioning on a sort of an AI level, a sort of survival mode. So I would equate the two together, because you're not exercising your freedom of will or your freedom of choice when you're in survival mode. You're no different really to the AI or the animal. But the thing is that, I'm sorry, I forgot, but it was to try and become above that, to try and so I forgot what I was going to say, but it was something about trying to reach beyond that level, to see the awareness beyond that level. But I forgot what I was going to say. Do apologize. I was trying to string it all together, but part of it is, it's like juggling. When you're trying to hold so many balls, you drop a couple. But that was the gist of it anyway.
Well, thank you.
Okay.
This has been amazing, really, really special. And anyone who wants to join us tomorrow night for our meditation for mindfulness, you're welcome. Just let me know. You can just send me an email. I'm happy to send you the link. And with that, we're back next week, Thursday. So next week we're back to Thursday, and otherwise I'll see you Monday night.
Oh,
Thank you so much.
And for those of you who are staying around, on to Talmud.
Is it worth saying that there's always a conflict between the soul and the body? So in this journey to awareness, it's always a challenge.
I would hope so. I would hope that it would be a challenge. I wouldn't want to give up the challenge for anything.
Ah,